Hey everyone, welcome to today's edition of One Single Story, where each weekday we offer a brief lesson from a section of today's reading. Then we examine a single relevant question based on that passage. Today I'm joined by Wendy, Korbusieski, and we are looking at a passage from 2 Corinthians chapter 9. Today I want to talk about how we're prepared for sharing. So Paul's still on the subject of the collection for the saints in Jerusalem. In chapter 9, he's expressing that he does not want them to feel pressured to give. The well-known phrase that we have often heard quoted in church is found in this particular passage: the Lord loves a cheerful giver. But let's consider how verse 8 is translated in other translations. In the New American Standard, it says, "And God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that always having all sufficiency in everything, you may have an abundance for every good deed." The English Standard Version says, "And God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that having all sufficiency in all things at all times, you may abound in every good work." And here is a verse in a word-for-word translation from a Greek scholar, and this is how he wrote it. "And God has the ability with all kinds of grace to lavish you, in order that in every situation, always having everything you need, you may have plenty of resources for every good work." So there are a couple of observations from this passage. Number one, God's grace is lavish. When Paul's encouraging the church to be generous, he bases it on the fact that God is generous with his grace. But generous is kind of an understatement. The idea of God's grace being lavish is more fitting. Think about the people we consider to be like uber wealthy. Their lifestyle is lavish. Their cars, their houses, their clothes, their jewelry, everything about them demonstrates this over-the-top lifestyle. Well, God's grace is over the top. He lavishes it on us as if it was wasteful spending of his love. This is a beautiful picture for us to understand. But the second thing is there is a purpose for these lavish blessings or this lavish grace. George Guthrie writes, he says, "Rather than lavishing believers with expansive expressions of grace so they might glut themselves on God's gift, the resources are to be used for every good work." The question is if God has been lavish in his blessings on us, is our giving just as lavish? You see, believers are uniquely prepared to be a blessing to others. So let's talk about giving for a few minutes, Wendy. Number one, what does lavish giving look like? What do you consider to be lavish giving?
The knee-jerk reaction is going to be, the monetary gift, the big spenders. And of course, nobody's going to say no to those gifts. We're always casting vision for the next phase, the next project, the next big event. We're not at a loss for any of the new great ideas. I mean, we've got a plenty that need to be funded. And there are some of those kind of givers in the church. I mean, they've got that spiritual gift of giving, and that's like a whole separate category of what I would consider like the regular giving that we're all commanded to do. But I think the other type of lavish giving that we can all be a part of is a giving of time. Somebody once said to me, you can make more money, you can't make more time.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of stuck. It hit and stuck, because I mean that's really true. That's the one thing that I can't make more of. I can give away money, but I can make more of it. Once I give away my time, I can't get it back. And time is such a precious resource, and the church can't get enough of it. I say it quite often. We're in the people business, and changing people's lives, investing in people's lives requires time, and we can only truly connect with people one person at a time. A real connection, one person at a time, and that takes somebody else's time to do that. And when one person sacrifices or invests their time, lavishes their time to invest in somebody else, man, how impactful is that? But then in turn, that creates another person who can then lavish their time on somebody else. And so it's a multiplying factor. So when the church can learn to give lavishly with their time and their talents, I think there's no stopping us. I think the money comes. Right. You know, as I say that kind of frivolously, but and not that that's not an important gift that we need, but I think the money comes. The talent and the time, you know, we can't manufacture on our own.
Well, when I think about lavish giving, it has less to do with the amount than it does the proportion. Mm-hmm. You know, because I can think back, I specifically, I don't pay a lot of attention to individual giving here at the church. There are some things I know, but for the most part, it's not. I don't look at individual giving records. And to clarify, for the most part, I want to know, do leaders give? Right? That would be important to me, because you shouldn't spend other people's money if you're not participating. But the proportionate, over my life, I have seen some of what I would consider to be the most lavish givers, people who were on a fixed income. When I'm speaking financially, they would give, and not, they didn't have a big business or a big job or make a lot of money or live in a big house, but they were consistent tithers and always givers, meaning they gave over and above their tithes.
Right.
If a project came along, they gave to it, and it may have only been $100, right? That may have been all they could give,
but they gave.
They were always giving, and the same is true of people's time and energy. I find this to be true for me. How much it means to people when I give them my time, because most people, not everybody, you know, there's some people who think I work one day a week, but for the most part, most people know I keep lots of balls in the air and lots of plates spinning. And, you know, as a friend told me, my wife was lamenting to him that he said he was passing off these responsibilities, and the guy said, "Well, did he?" She said, "Yeah, he did." But then the guy said, "Let me guess. He went and got more plates and more sticks." And that's exactly right. You know, so I keep a lot of plates spinning, but I find that when I will carve out time, you know, whether it's to go visit someone or just to send a text or to check on somebody, it's very appreciative of people, because it is a limited resource, and it is a really limited resource for me. And it's limited for everybody. We're all busy. But attention, compassion, you know, love. I mean, there's so many ways that we can lavishly bless somebody. It's not just money. Here specifically, he's talking about money.
Right.
And I don't think we can say, well, you know, I give my time, I shouldn't give my money. That's also a problem, right? You know, but you know, I think there are so many other ways that we can be lavish. But when we use God's lavish blessings for every good work, does that promote a connection between people when we're using that as our reasoning for doing what we do?
Absolutely. I mean, yes. I mean, when we're using our resources, whatever that is, whether it's a financial resource, our time resource, our talent resource, to reach other people, it's going to build connection. And I think that's the way it was intended to be designed. It reaches people. It means something. Just like you've personally experienced that. I've personally experienced that. It creates connection, and it's supposed to, and it helps build relationship. And inside those relationships is where change is affected. I mean, that's where true discipleship happens. And so inside that generosity is where ministry happens.
It has to be a response to God. So occasionally, well, let me preface this. I do not give to everybody that I see that is asking for money on the side of the road.
Right.
There's a rotation of people at Elizabeth City Walmart, stands there on the corner.
Yeah.
and I don't give to everyone.
No.
I'm not sure all of them have a need, right?
My daughter's she cracks me up, and I'm trying to train her. It's like what you're listening to is called the Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is part of her spiritual training. She's like, it's because this person doesn't speak to it, their need doesn't speak to me. It's like, baby, that's called the Holy Spirit. It's a feeling. I don't trust that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's this one person I feel compelled to give to every single time. It's these people, same people you're referring to.
Right.
I said, and I rejoiced in that. I said, honey, that's called the prompting of the Holy Spirit. Yeah. You've got to listen to that. And so whenever you're prompted, don't push that away. Trust it. Lean into it, because that's exactly what the Holy Spirit is. That's prompting you, leading you to give, and give generously, and don't regret a dime you give away.
Yeah, because that's what I was getting ready to say. I don't give to every one of them, but occasionally when I ride by, I'll feel the Holy Spirit. So the other day, this is actually the last time I was at Walmart, and I was in the car. Barbara was driving, so I was in the passenger seat, and I just happened to be on that side, and I felt the Holy Spirit prompt me and said, okay, you need to give them some money. So I opened up my wallet and gave them some money. And I don't know what they used it for. That the burden wasn't on me after that.
Right.
The burden was on them.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I think, at least in my case, I think the Holy Spirit does that just to see if I'm listening, because there may be something bigger I need to hear later.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm toning him out when he's dealing with things that seem to be minimal, I don't remember. I probably gave him $20, is what I would guess. If I won't listen over a $20 issue, am I going to listen when the stakes are higher?
If he can trust you with small things, he can then later trust you with larger things.
And so I tell people, when it comes to tithing, that's it. It's done. But when it comes to giving or offerings,
yes.
You need to be open to the Holy Spirit, because there will be moments and time and processes that you'll be nudged to give. And I'm not telling you shouldn't put people through some hoops to find out if it's legitimate. We do that here at the church.
Right.
We have a benevolence form that we want people to fill out. But there are other times, like, I don't really care what your story is. This is on me. The Holy Spirit wants me to give, wants me to do this.
Right.
And I have to do it, because it's not because of what you're going to do. It's what he has already done for me. Mm-hmm. And if I gave everything I had, it wouldn't be enough.
Right.
It wouldn't be enough.
Yeah. Those moments of giving aren't always about the other person. It's more about the training he's doing in you.
I would say at least my experience, it's been more about me.
Mm-hmm.
I have a letter in a file folder at home. I feel confident I've told this story in the last few years, but that I wrote to a TV preacher who makes my skin crawl. Right. But I gave, if I tell the amount, I'll give away who it is, because he's very specific about the amount he requests. Middle of the night, one night, I'm up watching TV, couldn't sleep. And he's talking about something very specific. And he was speaking, I knew he was speaking to me, and the Holy Spirit prompted me. I had never, ever at that point given to a TV ministry. And I sent a letter. I sent, it was a small amount. It was under $100.
Wasn't your life savings.
No. But that obedience led to some pretty significant things happening. And the next year I wrote a letter, and I still have the letter in my file folder at home, and I laid out how I believed being obedient for that amount. I sent a check for 100 times that amount the next year. Now, did I have to do that? No, but I felt prompted the second time by the Holy Spirit to do that. Do they use it for everything that I would consider to be wise or unwise? I don't know. But in those moments, both of those moments, I know that I had to be obedient. And if I
Right.
wasn't, and that's something I would guess 90% of my giving, 80 at least, comes through the local church. That's where I'm going to give my money. But sometimes I feel prompted, and you got to do it, because if you don't, if you stop listening for when he's giving you a $20 prompt, you're going to miss the $1,000, $100,000 prompts.
And you don't want to miss out on the blessings that he has.
And it's not always about money. I'm just using that as
there's other things coming that's right. Is so much bigger than dollars and cents.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us today on this edition of One Single Story. We hope you'll be back with us tomorrow as we finish up our conversation around 2 Corinthians.